Welcome to Learning from Global Crisis, New Strategies for Supporting a Multinational Workforce, a presentation by Paul Kohlenbrenner of ComPsych Corporation, provider of employee assistance and wellness programs. Paul Kohlenbrenner is the Vice President of Global Development at ComPsych. He has more than 25 years of experience in global HR business consulting and provider programs for local nationals and international assignees. For the last 5 years, he has led the Global Development Group at ComPsych. So at this time, I am pleased to turn the presentation over to Paul.
My name is Paul Kohlenbrenner, and I'm the Vice President of Global Development for ComPsych Corporation. My background is 25 years in global HR consulting, followed by 5 years with ComPsych, helping us drive the global growth and footprint of our business. Here we have the use of concentric circles to see how the extent of a crisis can impact employees, families, or colleagues throughout the world. In ground zero, typically that's where the event happens. I mean, it's a common term. Ground zero is where something might happen, and that employee or employees are impacted. And it could be something not so serious all the way to so serious that an employee will suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. So we, as an organization, try and help the companies in a crisis. We help the employee or employees who have been impacted. But if you go out to the outer circles, you're dealing with not just the employees, but their families also who are in crisis. And, it could be also if it's an international assignee, they're traveling, or families who are at home, their colleagues at work, it happens somewhere like that. Even if it's something happens domestically and the families are involved. So you're dealing with the employees and the families. And then if you go to another circle, you're looking at their immediate work colleagues, those who know them well and who might have seen or experienced the crisis. These people are also impacted. Their productivity is going to drop as well as everybody else. And then you've got the extended workforce and relationships. Sometimes the extended workforce will be involved with in a crisis counseling situation. Further relationships outside the family, depending on the situation, but typically it's immediate family members that are involved in the crisis counseling of an employee assistance program. Okay, so what's the current landscape, and what do we learn from our global benefits survey? We learned that multinationals are further globalizing, increasing global employee populations. I mean, that's an obvious, but as the world markets become more open, multinationals are going into countries and locations that you wouldn't have thought of a few years ago, and that brings up a lot of issues. Global EAPs address common stressors in the workplace, including critical incidents. We learned that from the survey. EAPs provide consistent frameworks for helping employees manage reactions after traumatic events, and global programs require country knowledge and cultural sensitivities. Why is this important? Because an EAP is a Western invention. As companies globalize their business, their benefits, their programs, they have to be sensitive to how they implement them, from communications in the languages, from the implementation of being sensitive to religions, to sexualities, to caste systems in India, a host of things that they need to pay attention to, and doing so will enable them to have a more successful program. And then the people who are managing and dealing in the program, people who are providing the counseling, they again also have to be the right kinds of people, because people relate to their own kind, and many of these countries won't want to deal with others. Let's look now at the current landscape. Our global benefits study results focused on company HR and benefit professionals, survey results from 200 individual responses, and results representing broad-based industry sectors. Okay, what we learned was almost 70% of the survey participants said that they experienced a critical incident in the past year. That's a large number of survey participants. With regard to the frequency Over 80% of survey participants had experienced up to 5 events in the past year. Again, a large number. Furthermore, nearly 75% of survey respondents experienced disruption to business operations, with almost half experiencing meaningful disruptions. This is important because disruptions don't only translate into workforce and possibly family and work colleague mental stress and anxiety. It also means a material reduction in productivity, which further impacts the financial performance of the enterprise. Looking at the types of critical incidents, the information on slide 8 is very interesting as it gives us a window into the surveyed companies, showing us the type and impact of the critical incidents reported. If I just point some of these out, number 1, work-related injuries, one would expect, very high. Sudden employee deaths, interesting, high, and very impactful to those who around them who witness them. And increasingly, as the world is changing, the environment's changing, we're seeing a real uptick in natural disasters, and this is being reflected in the survey. The type of impact of the critical incident, a decline in productivity at 19%, I'm not surprised. Employees being distracted on the job, of course. Distraction happens everywhere and anything, but 31%, that's a large number. And employees missing work, 25%. Again, using a diagram on slide 9 shows us how employees' surveys responded to their critical incidents. You can take a look at this, but I find it very concerning that only 18% said they provided on-site crisis counselors through EAP. Why I find that concerning is when a crisis happens, our approach to crisis counseling is to have experts in these situations going on-site to a facility, to a business, wherever it may be, and dealing face-to-face with the population. Referring them to local government resources, remind employees that, hey, we just had a crisis, 33% said you can access your EAP. Providing crisis counseling, which I have no idea, that of course that's good, but, again, I'm always concerned about the quality of the crisis counseling. In the Western countries, in Western society, crisis counselors are heavily regulated with regard to their education, their expertise, their licensing, etc. Once you go beyond that, it's the Wild West in the sense that anybody could hang on a shingle and provide this kind of counseling. So I'm always concerned about the quality of the crisis counseling provided. But I find, and our formula is very much talking to the employer about what happened, advising the employer about what they should do, and sometimes an immediate response is not the best, maybe a 1 or a 2-day response, depending on the situation, but typically an on-site response by taking the crisis counselor to the location where the people were impacted and helping them to work with the employees to normalize the situation. So let's look at key takeaways of what we're learning and sharing. What are the implications for the employer? First, there's a high likelihood that frequency and impact of critical incidents are not adequately tracked. More employers need to pay attention to this. When you track it, when you report it, when you gather data on it, it's better to make decisions with. Given the prevalence of critical incidents, employers need to be prepared to respond to traumatic events. CISM best practices promotes resilience. It's a fact, the better the crisis counseling, the sooner the workforce returns to productivity. And don't expect miracles, but stabilizing normalization after a crisis is very good progress. The opportunity to integrate the EAP and the CISM into risk management strategies, the alignment of all risk management strategies, especially the workforce one, is critical to an organization. And the financial impact of a crisis can be very high. That's why it's important to get people who know what they're doing on site, working with the company, advising those who need the advice, how to best handle the situation, so you will manage the financial impact by addressing the productivity issues and the risk issues and trying to get the workforce back to normalization. So, who's ComPsych and what makes us the global EAP and crisis counseling leader? We have been identified in the past 4 or 5 years by Crane's Business as the industry leader in both global EAP and crisis counseling. We're the leading provider of crisis counseling globally in the sense that I think we supported our customers with several thousand CISM situations last year. This year, it's rapidly growing. So we expect that number to increase year over year. We have the bandwidth to cover multiple incidents in countries, and we have a global network of over 45,000 counselors who are trained to provide advice and counseling. And we have within this network crisis counselors throughout the world who can address all types of crises. ComPsych has strength in delivering program performance, quality, and value. We are both a benefit and a business advisor to our customers worldwide, and I think that's very important in understanding the benefit designs, but the business implications of such programs. And last but certainly not least, we help employers worldwide maximize workforce productivity, mitigate risk, and reduce absenteeism and employee turnover.
Thank you for listening to our presentation, Learning from Global Crisis, New Strategies for Supporting a Multinational Workforce. For more information on ComPsych Global EAP and Critical Incident Stress Management Services and a free copy of our 2013 Global Trends Report on Global Critical Incidents, call 800-851-1714 or email info@compsych.com.